According to a leading Canadian media outlet, the Communist government of China is in the process of entrenching its draconian police state within our society. In an article published this week, Canada's Globe and Mail claim it is being done with no worry about being confronted by our own national security agencies. The FSU Public Security Bureau has established more than 50 overseas police service centers in cities around the world, including 3 in Toronto, home to Canada's largest Chinese diaspora. Translation: the greater the degree of immigration from Communist China to Canada, the greater the influence of the Chinese government in our country, as sublimated by mainstream Canadian media. No one should be surprised it's the case. In terms of modern immigration policy, China is a prototype of what not to do to a sovereign Canada. As such, this means that if a Trudeau family member is Prime Minister, they will do the exact opposite. It was ex-Liberal Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau who initiated China's entry into our cultural and economic institutions in the early 1970s. Fast forward a half-century, and China is setting up police centers in the Greater Toronto area. No doubt they will exist in all major cities in Canada in due time. The RCMP and politicians of all stripes routinely condemn Chinese state harassment of people in Canada. But what action has been taken? There have been no arrests or any expulsion of any Chinese diplomats who might be coordinating this kind of thuggery. Dress it up any way you like, including current Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's penchant for wearing bright red silk Chinese jackets. The fact is that between so-called father and son, China has transitioned to a fixture in Canadian society. The officers have taken aim at these alleged, and unproven, criminals by seizing their families' assets, denying children in China access to schools, and terminating family members' employment, all in violation of due process. A little bit of Justin Trudeau on the side. Looks as if our PM has learned well from the government of China. It was in early 2022 that the Liberals took a page from their government and seized assets of protesters during the truckers' protest in Ottawa. Step 1 of emulation of China: punitive measures for citizen non-compliance, to be followed by digital ID for all Canadian citizens, another replication of freedom-destroying Chinese government practices. We add their social credit system for good measure. The target, eventually, is that the government system will be countrywide, with businesses given a unified social credit code and citizens an identity number, all linked to permanent record. The Liberal Party of Canada has over the past 50 years established, funded, and promoted China's integration into Canadian society. The more we ignore reports of China's growing presence in Canada, including its interference in our electoral process, its potential espionage in our universities and research institutes, and so on, the more emboldened and manipulative Chinese agents become, with no sign that it will be held accountable. China will only increase the size and threat of its operations, because it can. And why can it? Number 1, with a bullet is found in the Liberal Party's relationship with the government of China, a process which dates back a half-century. Pierre Trudeau began the process in 1970, after becoming Prime Minister in 2015. Justin Trudeau's first major foreign policy maneuver was an attempt to establish a Canada-China free trade agreement. In terms of political ideology, Justin Trudeau has integrated the behemoth nation's government media dynamic into Canadian society. Academic institutions have over the past half-century become bastions of pseudo-communism. Over the decades, the Liberals have consistently sold off Canada's premier natural resources to the Chinese government. Former Conservative leader Erin O'Toole claims foreign interference from China in the last election cost his party seats. But some media and national security experts are pushing back, arguing that it's difficult to conclusively prove interference, and that any intervention was unlikely to have been so decisive. We witness an institutional alignment of Trudeau liberalism and Chinese communism in Canada. Media side with government. Add to this Canadian security agencies. While we are at it, we throw in our Anglophone-bashing education system. All systems a go. Methodically and with intent, our Liberal government has assimilated Chinese communism into the fabric of Canadian society. With Justin Trudeau as national leader, their influence is growing by the day. These operations eschew official bilateral police and judicial cooperation, and show the worrying growth of transnational repression and long-arm policing by the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, the report said. China is the #1 immigration source nation to Canada over the past 50 years. Thanks very much, Pierre and Justin Trudeau.